Kia ora, good afternoon. How poignant that the cop car just went screaming past with the sirens on. So I've been doing research for the Soul Collector. Quite a lot of research. I've been trying to find any mythology in Alaska to do with the Inuit people or the First Nations tribes and that to do with mountains or places or gateways where they believe the souls of the dead go after they die, but I don't appear to have found anything yet but it's okay because it just means I kind of have to slightly rewrite the story, which is completely fine. I don't mind doing that. I've also decided to make Lieutenant Ruby mixed breed, like First Nations European, character, because it's all going to be based in Alaska, and I'm not going into the storyline. I'm not going to be revealing anything, but I know that I want her voice actor and what she's going to look like on screen. And if you know what V looks like in Cyberpunk 2077, if you kind of mix her with a bit of Lara Croft, that's sort of what you're going to get with Ruby. But because she's not going to be of Hispanic descent, of Latino descent, her name's not going to be Corazon anymore. I'm going to find a really cool last name. So she'll be Ruby something. I'll 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 find a name for her because she's a character that has to blend in with her surroundings. And again, I'm not going to go into detail. But in doing my research and trying to find a place that's like Cape Reinga in New Zealand, where we believe it's the highest point in New Zealand where we believe all spirits go to cast off, to go off to the afterlife they leave from Cape Reinga in New Zealand. I was trying to find somewhere like that and I couldn't find one, but I had come across a place called Eklutna. In Māori, it would probably be pronounced something like Eklutna, 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 something like that. But I'm probably butchering it, and if you're from there, I apologise. Eklutna, because we'd probably separate the E and the K, so it would be Eklutna. But even though that's totally not a Māori word, if it was a Māori word, it would probably, the E would be separated from the K, so it would be Eklutna. Eklutna. So, yeah, I'd seen about the Eklutna burial houses, and I thought it was pretty cool, and I thought, gosh, I could put that into one of my movies or something, but now I'm thinking I can put it into the Soul Collector. It would fit perfectly with the Soul Collector, seeing as I can't find their version of Cape Reinga. So I want to try and work with the people there, because see, in my culture, it's forbidden, it's tapu to take videos or photos of the dead, of their bodies, of their graves, their headstones, that sort of thing. It's forbidden. Like with Aborigines, we believe that it traps the soul, and souls after they die are supposed to be given the freedom to roam the earth and the universe and all of that sort of thing, right? So I was saying in my post that what I would do is I would set up a fake one within my movie studio. We'd set up like a fake burial ground with the sacred houses and all that, but I would invite villagers from Eklutna to come, and I would want their permission and their blessing. I don't want to do anything to disrespect their culture or their belief in that, because I don't like it when people do it with mine. So I'd invite them to come and be my advisors and all that. I want to help them with their fishing rights in their waterways. I can put one of my general stores there. Anything I can do to help them, I'll do it. I'll put my money to good use. So, in doing all of this, I came across the story of Eklutna Annie. And as soon as I started looking into it, I knew exactly what it was. And even though I can't help you with her identity, although I do keep thinking British Columbia, and Robert Hansen, she's a Highway of Tears girl. She's a Highway of Tears victim. I've spent many, 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 many years studying the Highway of Tears, and I've worked with some of the victims. And what people need to understand is that the Highway of Tears victims weren't killed by one person. It wasn't a serial killer. It wasn't one man snatching these people. And you also need to understand that it's not just Indigenous women that went missing. It was, like with the Jack family, it was men as well. Indigenous men went missing. Indigenous children went missing. And they weren't taken by one person. They were taken by a cult. And you know that I have always said that most serial killers are put up to it by the cult they belong to. Like with Abby and Libby, with the cult of Odin and all that, they all work for the same people. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, Charles Manson, Ted Bundy, they all admitted to working for, quote unquote, the Illuminati. John Wayne Gacy, these are all people who had jobs either in the council, in government, in law enforcement, with like the water company, the electricity company, and the electricity company, the gas company, where they have to put in the big pipelines and the big pylons and all that because they lure them in with the promise of jobs, but so that they can sacrifice them in order to make money. Because what people need to understand is that when an Indigenous person goes missing, expressly an Indigenous person, and they turn up dead, or you never see them again, they're wiped off the face of the earth, they've been sacrificed because of the fact they're Indigenous. There is no blood out there more desirable than that of the Indigenous blood, because we are the originals. We are the cosmic bloodline. We are the bloodline that to a cult is like liquid gold. To sacrifice our souls is like winning the jackpot. To have access to our blood, our DNA, our baby making fluids and that sort of thing is like hitting the jackpot, because we are the closest relatives to the cosmic ancestors. We hold powers within our DNA that no other bloodline has. We still hold on to those powers. It's one of the reasons why I was considered a prize catch, because if they couldn't work with me as a scientist, then they wanted to sacrifice me. My husband and my ex-husband and all that, I was going to be the sacrifice. They were going to sacrifice me so that they could have the jobs and the money and the fame and the prestige and that they were promised. But it didn't work, because my cosmic ancestors and my cosmic, God stepped in. Hang on. I'm going to sneeze. Now, with Robert Hansen, and I'm pretty sure I've discussed him before, one of the reasons why I'm not sorry to see my Instagram and LinkedIn and that go is because not only was it distracting me, if I was still focusing on, if I still had my LinkedIn and my Instagram, I wouldn't have been able to pay attention to zeroing in on Alaska. I would have completely missed the off-ramp. But also as well, I had posted things in my Dreamweaving Alchemist Instagram and up on my LinkedIn that I'm embarrassed about. That if people saw them now, I'd be embarrassed because I got stuff wrong and I wasn't presenting myself correctly. That looking back now was totally embarrassing. Because I've come such a long way in my investigation skills and my abilities as an occult physicist and all that, I've come such a long way. I don't recognise who I was even in 2020 when I started that Instagram that they took away. And even the New Dawn Ministry one that they took away that I was only using as my vision board. There were things that I'd put in that Dreamweaving Alchemist Instagram that I would have been utterly mortified and embarrassed if people today saw, because I got things wrong. But I had stuff in there, and I've got the original paperwork somewhere, probably if not in this flat, but in the Dungeon of Doom, where he tried to kill me. And it'll be on X and that, but it'll be buried way down. I've got screenshots in there of a conversation that I had with some of the Highway of Tears girls, and they were the ones that said, there's more than one. You know, some of them, like with men, they were offered jobs with the gas company, with the electric company, with the water company, putting the lines in, working for the companies, working in the lumber mills and all of that, and then never seen again. And like with the Jack family. And the girl said that these ones in particular that go around like British Columbia and Prince George, is it? And, Anchorage and all of that, they drive around in work trucks police, I'll beat up like police trucks and stuff because it gives them the impression of being harmless. It's part of their cover. And so, they're trusted where they get in the van, they're trusted and they're offered jobs and they're offered rides and then they're never seen again because they're sacrificed. And, like I said with the Chris Tompkins investigation with Indigenous people and African Americans, they're used for their blood, they're used for their baby making stuff. They're either impregnated so that they can have the baby, or they take their fluids so that they can make a baby, depending on the sex, or they use them as slaves, or they use them as sacrifices or for eugenics, because they want to, people like Elon Musk and Jeffrey Epstein, and they are obsessed with making the perfect human being, to finish what their Nazi grandfathers and that started in World War II. Just a sec. And specifically with Annie, she was hunted. He stabbed her in the back, sorry. In the case of Robert Hansen, he used to hunt a lot of these girls. But it's because they are part of the, like the Epstein hunting parties. It's what they use them for. So if there's any serial killers out there where you find out they were using victims, to let them run off into the wild to hunt them, that it's just like Epstein. The thrill of the chase, the thrill of the hunt. My son and I were just talking about this the other day, the Epstein hunting parties. He liked to hunt African Americans. He called them the safari hunting parties. The Rothschilds and that, my son and I were talking about how, they'd set brothers hunting brothers and kids hunting fathers and all of that sort of thing, and then they'd sit and watch and make bets and all of that sort of horrendous stuff. Well, like with the Charles Manson murders and all that, it's no different. They were set the task to sacrificed Sharon Tate and her baby, you know, Rosemary's Baby, blah, 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 because of Polanski and everything that he had been accused of. They were sacrifices for him to make his movie and get away with all the things that he was doing to young girls, and, you know, Woody Allen and all of that sort of thing. They let serial killers do it. They let the perverse, insane ones get away with doing these sort of things because in their twisted mind, they're taking their sins off them. If they have victims, especially if they're young, innocent, virginal, and innocent can also mean not a willing participant, an innocent person just going about their business and somebody decides to take their life, they're innocent. They transfer their sins onto the victim. And because these people responsible for setting the serial killers loose to do what they want, so that the governors and sheriffs and, you know, the Freemasons and presidents and or prime ministers and all that get away with their crimes, they let the serial killers do it because they're very good at gathering victims, and then they get to transfer their sins onto the victim. That's what they believe. You know, sin eating goes all the way back to the medieval times in the United Kingdom. But then you have mythological creatures like the Leshy, hang on, just having a sip of my coffee, who used to remove the cursed children from the villages. A lot of the East European mythology will say that the Leshies came and stole children, but they often removed children who were cursed or who were from cursed families, and they would remove the curse from the children, kind of like the Tata Duende and all of that. You know, they were guardians of the forest who would take the innocent into the forest to protect them from the curses that had been put on the villager in the home. They kind of absorbed the sins of the innocent. It's very similar. And so when you're talking about the Highway of Tears, it is 100% Illuminati. And when any Indigenous people go missing in the Americas, and if you look at my Highway of Tears video, in the comment section, there's someone from New Zealand who follows me, who we're having a brief discussion about how the same thing is happening in New Zealand with Indigenous people there, because I was asked to work on a couple of the cases. Araki Rigby, Brianna Murawai, Michaela, I can't remember her last name, I'm so sorry, but it's all there in the comments if you read it. The same thing is happening in Australia as well, because Indigenous blood is highly prized. We are like the golden chalice of bloodlines, because everybody in the world knows that Indigenous people, we are the navigators of the stars. We are the cosmic, the direct descendants of our cosmic ancestors. We remember how the earth began. We remember how the universe was created. We remember what our ancestors did with it all and what our gods did it for. And, you know, we remember, it's ingrained in us. And because when you get people from white heritages like Germany and France and the United Kingdom, like Black Annis, for example, they can't have what we've got. And even to take our blood and our organs and our DNA and that, they're still never going to have what we've got, because as soon as our essence is removed from our body, we return to spirit. We return to the ethers. We become the wind and the air and the stars in the sky. We become atoms that create everything. We immediately return to that, so the body becomes useless. So to take parts of our body after we are dead, or without our permission, you're basically just taking Like, say, for example, a diamond or a gem from our body, that when it is removed from our body becomes just a useless, valueless rock. So there's nothing you can do with it. Everything that makes us special is shut off the second our spirit or our will is taken from us. So the eugenics thing doesn't work, and then what happens is, the laws of karma, the laws of convex linear reversion, it all comes back on them. And the three most famous people for eugenics living today, and I say living today, is Epstein, Gates, and Musk. And they think that if they have lots of babies, or they inject their seed into the cells in that they'll be able to create the Antichrist. But they don't understand how any of this works. They really have no clue. Their knowledge and understanding of the occult and afterlife is infantile, which is why they were pissed off at me and why they're pissed off at all these other scientists, because either scientists can't figure it out, or they figure out what they're being used for, or like with me, I told them to get stuffed because I knew exactly what they wanted me for when they wanted me to join them, and I was like, get stuffed, because I work for humanity, not against it. I speak for the souls of the dead. I help prepare people for the afterlife. I'm here to show humanity the right way to connect to your ancestors. And because when you're able to connect to your ancestors, like in the ethers, which is the sixth stage of the ascension, it's the sixth element is the ethers. When you connect to your roots, you are reborn and transformed, and you get to flourish and grow in ways that, I mean, that screenshot that I put up in my last live about the soul collector, tell me that doesn't look like the grandmother tree. Or if you're a hippie, the tree of life. When you tap into your ancestors and where you belong, it brings you to life in a way that nothing else can, even beyond God and that, because depending on who you believe God is, for me, God is the atom, that which creates life. The light of creation to me is God, and the light of creation is the atom. And the atomic frequency is what you tap into in order for your universe, for your spirit to come alive, to stay alive. And they think that by putting their sins onto us when they take our lives, that they're going to be free from punishment. But it doesn't work like that, because Satan or Odin or Hades or whoever you believe your underworld god is, they don't accept sacrifices of the pure and innocent. It's a gross injustice, and then they immediately come after you because you fell for the trickster. You fell for the temptations of the devil. You sold your soul to the devil. Satan protects the pure and innocent on behalf of God, as does Odin. If someone is sent to the underworld for judgment, who was sent there not of their own free will, who was sent there as a pure and innocent, then you feel his wrath. He comes after you. He bangs the drums and sends everyone out to come after you with the force of like 1,000 militaries. Because he is like a god of war. He's god of the underworld, but he's also like a military god as well. Hang on, sip. And I always said when I got to America, when I got to Canada, depending on where I thought I was going at the time, I would be investigating the Highway of Tears. I've been wanting to do it for a very, very, very long time. It's on my bucket list, in fact. of places to go to investigate. And what people need to understand is that they're taking them, it's not just a highway, there's a couple of highways. And the highway in Canada and the highway in Alaska goes down through Arizona and up through Mexico through Arizona. Arizona is kind of like the bullseye. Arizona is, I talked about when the kids went missing and the veterans went looking for the kids in the Arizona desert and all that, and they found the skull there. And they tried to say that, it was like an adult and blah, 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 but people saying that's a kid's skull. I've told you the story about working on that case in Arizona all those years ago. Arizona is like the meeting point where they hand them over from Canada and Alaska and that, or from Mexico and stuff. I've worked with Border Patrol agents who suffered from PTSD. I've worked with law enforcement. I've worked with people who worked for the CIA, FBI, and they've told me things because of the suffering, because it messed with their heads, and they were being haunted because being in law enforcement, they were contractually obligated to keep their mouths shut. And it was messing with their heads, and they were having nightmares and they were being haunted. And then, of course, paranormal activity, poltergeist activity, and word got around that I was the person to go to. One person in the military told somebody else what I did for them, and the next thing I know, word got around and I was being messaged by people in all kinds of law enforcement, CIA, FBI, Border Patrol, the NYPD, the LAPD, just various members, individuals, because they were being haunted because, a pure mind and an innocent mind, someone who genuinely takes an oath to protect and serve the people, when they're being forced to keep the kind of secrets that a lot of these people are being forced to keep, it messes with their head. And so they then start having like mental breakdowns, nervous breakdowns. It's happening here at the moment with the British police. They're resigning in droves. It's happening with the American Navy, the Abrams, not HMS, the SS Abrams, is it called? They're all trying to off themselves by jumping out of the ships and stuff in the water. They're losing their minds because they're being forced to witness things and experience things that aren't normal for the human spirit or for human nature to be a part of. And so it messes with their subconscious. And so they carry guilt, they harbour guilt. And because they're forced by law under contract and that to keep their mouth shut, it messes with their head and comes back as mental illness, as PTSD, as paranormal activity, as poltergeist activity, and to the extreme, to the far end of the extreme, they have addictions. They'll turn to drugs and alcohol. They'll become violent, like wife beaters, husband beaters, whatever, because of the pent up. They're not allowed to talk, and it's literally driving them insane. And so that rage and anger and fear and sadness and all of that has to go somewhere, so it manifests as negative or paranormal activity, and even to a more extreme extent, possessions. I had a wife of one of the people that I was helping say that, when he would start drinking and get angry and scream at her about how she doesn't understand and blah, 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 she said it was like he switched from this normal, loving family man who was so loving and protective and sweet, and he liked to play his country music and play his guitar and sing and all of that sort of thing, to being someone, like she said, demonic, like completely unrecognizable. And when I finally gave him the outlet to say, this is what happened to me, this is what I witnessed, this is what I saw, and I'm scared and I don't know what to do, just by him getting all of that out, and then me promising him I'm not going to say anything, blah, 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 and then showing him what to do and getting his wife to help him, and that everything stopped. And see, with my clays and sprays and that, when I go to these places, I can use them so that, see where Annie was buried, where they found her body, we can release all of that. It sounds like where he killed her, she would have absolutely have left a negative imprinted image on the atmosphere, so I can go and put my clay down and my spray as a tohunga, as a Māori shaman. They're from the area that my ancestors are from, the Tinglet people, and Klingit people. Oh God, I'm all new to this. Just give me a break. Yeah, so I'll have ancestral permission to be that for them. But she was 100% a sacrifice, in the exact same way that the victims of the Highway of Tears and all the Māori people that are going missing and turning up dead, if they go missing, vanished off the face of the earth, it means they were moved out of the area. If they've not found any trace of them, it means they were moved out of the area, because one of the things that the girl said was, I know one of them was found by a river, her name was Diane or Diana, and she was telling her brother Tommy, because they were saying, play the flute, Debbie, play the flute. Don't be afraid and play the flute. She was calling out to her brother Tommy, telling Tommy, oh, I can't remember, something to do with a lumberjack mill. There was a lumberjack mill by where some of the girls went missing, where they used the big saws and stuff to, freeze them and use the big saws. And then others, they flew out on planes, because they thought that, she was saying, one of the girls was saying she thought that they were going to throw her out of the plane, but they took her out of Canada. But they're all connected. So, I don't know why, but I just keep seeing BC with Annie. So she may be from British Columbia. And like a lot of them, they were lured with jobs, the promise of jobs or rights. A lot of them were there for work, and they said that these trucks had work logos on them. And apparently with Annie, Robert Hanson was there because of, they were putting in phone lines, electricity lines, gas lines, pipelines. It's all in the description box. What I don't understand is, in this day and age, they're saying that they don't know who she is, but they could do a DNA test and do like a, there's bound to be somebody who's in her lineage that has done one of those ancestry.com DNA tests or whatever they're called. But when the police don't get involved, when the police don't try, like with all the kids going missing at Thunder Bay in Ontario, turning up dead and going missing. When the police aren't doing anything, there's a reason why. And you have to understand is that a lot of these police are Freemasons. A lot of these police are like Proud Boys. And it's kind of like a catch-22 because on one hand, Indigenous people are seen as scum of the earth, worthless, when we're worth nothing. But then on the other hand, we're everything. We're everything they will never be. That we are everything they will never have access to. And because of that, we're treated like shit. Because they're frustrated at the fact they can't get from us what they want from us because they don't understand how any of this works. We're more powerful in spirit than we are in the physical. And we are the one race of people who don't need to leave the body in order to be in spirit. And they can't stand that. Because when we're in spirit, that's when we become our most supernatural. That's when we're at our most powerful. And when you have people like me that are medicine men and women, shaman, tohungas, whatever you want to call them, we have the kind of powers that commands the attention of the gods. Where it was never supposed to be me. I'm in my family, I'm the lowest of the food chain. But for some reason I was chosen. For some reason I was picked. Out of all my siblings, I was picked. My sister was supposed to... My sister, my elder sister is technically the chieftain of our family. But, because Mum took over from Nana and Marion was supposed to take over from Mum. But there was no interest there. And so it all went to me. And even in my own tribe, I'm not given any respect or consideration. When I was locked up and I was being denied my Indigenous rights and my human rights were being violated, and I reached out to the Ngāti Raukawa committee, they turned their backs on me. They didn't want to know. So I had to go to the New Zealand High Commission for help. And that's when they gave me a list of the lawyers and that, but my lines of communication to get help were shut down. And when they tried to arrest me for having nothing to do with anything that my ex accused me of, I then had to go to the New Zealand High Commission and they told me exactly what to do to stop me from getting arrested for not being involved. And they were perfectly prepared to lock me up. They gave me a lawyer and were going to read me my rights because somebody who had nothing to do with me in any way, shape or form posted something on X about my ex-husband. And my ex-husband went to the cops and said, put my name in the mix, and I had nothing to do with anything. The person, when they went to them, person even said, she's got nothing to do with it. Like she's completely innocent. She's got nothing to do with anything. Just leave her out of it. They were still going to arrest me. Because in Britain, I'm too black to be white. As soon as they see my punamu, as soon as they see my greenstone, they see the feathers in my hair, they see me, talking to the birds and all that sort of thing, which is my Indigenous right to do under the Geneva Convention. I have the right as an Indigenous person to practice my faith any way I want, with the equality laws as well. I have the right, it's against the law to judge someone or persecute someone based on their culture, their creed or their religion, and yet they were determined to poison me. They wanted me dead. They were doing everything they could to stop me having the right to live simply because I'm Indigenous. I'm too white to be black here. Oh, sorry, I'm too black to be white here. And probably when I go to Alaska, I'll be too white to be black. But I am. I'm probably more black because I'm also Egyptian. I can trace my bloodline back to Africa, to Central Africa. We came from Central Africa and spread out up through Egypt and that, and then we became indigenous, Siberian and Chinese and Taiwanese and Polynesian and South American, Eurasian, Alaskan. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. However, the only thing that gives me hope that I won't be racially profiled in Alaska is that I've been looking at the Haida Tlingit people and that, and they look just like my whānau. And we're also, I've got cousins that are first cousins that are as black as the ace of spades. And then I've got others that are as white as the driven snow, and we're all first cousins. Our parents were siblings. But, you know, genetics. I got the mighty nose, and then I found out that my pointy chin and my high cheekbones is Indigenous, First Nations. That if you've got high cheekbones and pointy chin, and because my blood group O positive, you're direct First Nations. And so I've been looking at photos of the like Tlingit Haida people and all that, thinking, oh my God, they could pass as my cousins and my aunties and uncles. Like, you wouldn't be able to tell us apart if we were all in the same room. So we're hated because we're feared. And so they try to use threats and subjugation and addictions and, you know, this whole thing with the casinos and stuff. Just like with African Americans, with when they brought in cocaine, if you feed the addiction, it keeps you quiet, it keeps you silent, it keeps you subjugated and pushed into a corner. But when I get there, I'm going to be like, hell nah. I'm smashing the doors wide open. I'm saying, get outside, let's work together, let's raise the children the right way, let's make some movies, video games, TV shows, let's kick Alaska's tourism into gear in a way that they've never seen before. I'm going to give people a reason to want to drive from the bottom of America and, you know, the east coast of Canada and all that, all the way over to Alaska to see our concerts and our shows and our movies and our festivals. I'm just going to need all hands on deck. And one of the first things I'm going to be doing when I get there is I'm going to be travelling around doing these shows, doing these investigations and finding answers. So that even if the victims don't get justice, they get their story told. And I'm the only one that can do it. I'm the only one that knows how to do it. I'm the gatekeeper. I know mighty people we don't usually have gatekeepers, but for some reason I was given, probably because I'm Egyptian as well, I was given the role of gatekeeper. So, kind of like Odin, before you die, you got to go through me, and after you die, you go through me. As in, I prepare you for what it's like, what you have to do to live your best life in the afterlife, but then I also pass on messages from the afterlife as well, because they're trying to teach people how to live their best life in this one so that they don't have to come back and do it all over again, you know, with karmic debt and ancestral debt and, you know, us Indigenous people, especially mine, from my Alaskan ancestors right through to my Māori ancestors and my Egyptian and Iranian ancestors, we had slaves. So, you know, from the lower tribes and all that, we had slaves. And in my culture in particular, they were free roaming slaves because they knew that if they went back to their villages, they'd get killed because they brought shame upon the people for allowing themselves to be caught. So they were better off just staying as slaves so that they didn't bring shame upon their tribes and their iwi. So, I'm trying to do my bit. And then if we're all working together to pay off karmic debt and doing things like, helping people like Annie get her voice and the Highway of Tears victims and all of that, then it lifts a lot of burden off Papatuanuku, off Te Whiti, off Gaia, Mother Earth, whatever you want to call her. It lifts the burdens off her. She's not keeping secrets. And then she's not projecting paranormal activity and all of that, because then she's not having to hold on to any of her secrets. Like in my culture, when you see twisted, gnarled trees with knots and stuff, it means the trees have seen things that they're holding on to. They're holding on to secrets, and it's like eating away at them. It's gnawing at them. It's knotting them up. They're holding on to stress. I've got a video. I'll put a link in the description box where I was doing a Mystery Inside Histories. I think it was Bridlington Hall, where I was sitting and I was saying to the boys, that tree's got a secret, that tree's seen a murder, that tree knows something and it can't get it out. And so see those knots. I was saying to my boys, those knots in the tree mean that that tree's holding on to a secret, and it's like kind of like a mental disturbance in the tree. The tree's seen things and it's disturbed them on a psychological level, because even from a scientific standpoint, everybody knows that trees talk to each other. It's been scientifically proven that trees talk to each other, and they record sound and memory within the rings of their bark and stuff, because to Māori people, and I'm pretty sure like First Nations people, they're living, breathing beings. And so when they're witnessing things like murders that's not been talked about, or, where they haven't been able to get out what they saw, they become all knotted and gnarly and stressed out. And it was one of the very few trees in the garden that the birds weren't singing about. And so I did some investigating and found out that yes, indeed, there was a murder there, that this man had come back from, don't quote me, but it might have been the Crimean War, don't quote me. But he'd come back from the Napoleonic War, or I don't know, he'd come back from one of these wars, and it was in the days of like the Bronte sisters and that, because the Bronte sisters used to go and visit there. He came back from war and caught his wife having an affair, and I think he killed the wife or killed the lover. I don't know. It's in the video. Once I tap into the creation frequency when I do these investigations, it's not very often I come back down remembering everything. But it was the tree that told me, and I promised that I would tell the tree's story. To a white person, that sounds nuts, but to the tree and Mother Earth, Papatuanuku, and the victim who was murdered, that's everything. Because what it does is then they go, oh, somebody told my story. And then they can relax, and all of that negative energy is released from the area. So it means anyone walking through that bit from that point on, they're not going to be spooked. They're not going to get scared. They're not going to feel like they're being watched or followed, or they're not going to have any creepy paranormal stuff. My whole purpose is, when I do these investigations, my Mystery Inside History shows, and then I can use my products and use my investigation skills to speak for whatever needs to be spoken for. It will completely remove paranormal activity, so then you won't have paranormal investigators and gore hounds and ghoul hounds going there and making up stuff and keeping energy trapped there that deserves to be released. And one of the things that Indigenous people are here for, that they're going to need us for in the new world once the darkness is removed, is that we're going to be the ones that are going to be able to go around and lift all that negative energy from all the spaces where we were all kept prisoners by the darkness, where we were all kept in the darkness by our prime ministers and presidents and, you know, so our slave owners. And it's Indigenous people's role to keep the planet clean and pure, especially on a spiritual level, because when you think about all the wars that have been fought, all the bloodshed, all the famine, the diseases, everything that was forced upon us, everything that was created by man. And trust me when I say that a lot of these diseases and disasters and all that, I've been able to trace back to man being the cause of it, all the way back to the Greeks. We got a lot to clean up. And I'm one person, but when I make my shows and I start putting it all out there on my streaming service and my version of YouTube and all that sort of thing, hopefully I'll be able to get the message out there. And then of course I'll have the money to start bringing everyone from all these countries together, and then we can go to other countries and work with their people to do the same thing in their countries too. And then when I have my School of Alchemy, I can get my students from all over the world to train them how to do it all, and then send them home to their own country so that they can go out and do everything on my behalf with my products and all of that, and then they can make their own shows, because then they'll know what to do, and then that's having more hands on deck, because I will have given them permission to work on behalf of my ancestors and my ancestral gods. And they'll have, they'll be given their own amulets and magic carpet bags and all of that. So, yeah, with Annie, he was definitely a scout. And what they do is they let them, like with the Yorkshire Ripper and Jimmy Savile, like I was talking about, all of that, they let them take the claim the victim, because then they get notoriety, and it feeds into their fetish for bloodlust and, physical lust, sexual lust, and all of that sort of thing. So, but it's basically they're like the cover story, so that you don't see who's really behind it all. And if I was able to actually properly look into her case, I would probably be able to trace back who she was killed for. But I don't know, I just keep thinking with her she has some connection to British Columbia. And because, all the different police departments and that don't talk to each other, because they're not interested, because they don't care, because they're only filthy Indigenous people. Little do they realise how powerful we are. And if we all came together, man, we would blast this planet with a beam of light so strong it would be the equivalent, the energetic equivalent of decalcifying the pineal gland, just like that. And the dendrolite, that's exactly what that was the intended purpose for. Except I'm not going to have access to the pyramids in Giza, so I've got my biorhythmic field generator instead. And again, that Virgin Mary dream that I had, that's exactly what she was talking about. She was calling me to Alaska, talking about her people and using my biorhythmic field generator to cross them over. Given diseases, she said. They were given diseases. They came from all over and they got sick. And they're too scared, and I need your help, she said. Well, see, now I've realised that was Alaska. I thought it might have been Argentina or somewhere like that, but no, it's Alaska. So, yeah. So I will help Annie and whatever I can do for the people of Eklutna. And then hopefully I can bring us all together so that we can right the wrongs and not put the white sciences and white governments in their place, but show them what power really looks like. And we'll just ignore them all and go about our business and just take care of everyone, one state and country at a time. We'll just ignore the internet, and we'll ignore technology, and we'll go back to basket weaving and pottery and making clothes and making jewellery, and no hunting though. No need to hunt in this day and age. It's unnecessary. It doesn't help. It doesn't help nothing. It's still giving into bloodlust. There's absolutely no need to go killing any innocent thing on this planet just because you like to hunt it. Because it's bloodlust, and for all the hunters in America that love to go out hunting, you're part of the reason why America's in the state that it's in, because you're paying off karmic debt. You have to understand that the universe has to balance itself out somehow. So if you take the life of an innocent animal, if you chop down a healthy tree, you have to pay for it yourself. And because you're letting your government and that get away with unspeakable acts of evil. So, it's like you have to wake up and take responsibility for your part in what's happening. And until then, you're just going to keep suffering. But you got to stop killing things. There's absolutely no need for it. In this day and age, there's no need for it. If you're choosing to live off grid and, oh, but it's my food, you're the one that chose to live off grid. You're on their turf. They're going about minding their own business. You got no business going and hunting them just because. Go and get a bigger freezer and fill it up with stuff from the supermarket. I know you talk about, but cows and chicken, they understand that there's a circle of life. They eat the grass, we eat them, then we become the grass and they eat us. But there's still better ways that we could be eating cows and chickens and that don't cause them pain and suffering. But like I said, until we all work together to do something about it, we are responsible for everything that's happening. There's better ways to go about doing what you're doing in America. And, for people that go hunting. There's better ways of going about it. There's a lot you can do to fix America, but you have to all work together. And stop going by labels and stop with the gossip. Oh my God. All social media it's like the gossip hotline. So it's like someone will post something on TikTok and then everyone on YouTube has to have an opinion about it. And it's like, why are you giving these people that you know nothing about all your time and attention? Why are you putting energy into it? Just don't look at them. Don't give them any attention. If you don't give them attention, they don't get attention, and then they'll just shut up and go away. Like, why are you wasting your time putting your nose into other people's business? My thoughts on the so-and-so saga on TikTok and all that, and it's like, really? Your governments are doing what? And you're focusing on that? Really? Like, that's more important than fighting for your rights? That's more important than fighting for your religious freedom or your constitutional rights? Gossiping about someone's pop cakes on TikTok is more important than the fact that your presidents and prime ministers are absolutely robbing you blind and laughing about it because you're not doing anything to stop them. Someone's Pop Tart or Pop Cakes or whatever they're called is more important to talk about than you all getting together and getting lawyers and judges and cops and that together and saying no more. We want our country back. We want our freedoms back. Hell no, we won't go. Power to the people. They're wanting to do with African Americans in America what they did with Indigenous people, Aborigine people, Māori people. They want to take African American children away from their parents because they don't think that African Americans can raise their children. This is coming from Donald Trump and people on the Epstein files. They did that with us. They did that with Indigenous people. They removed the children and put them in orphanages and even like insane asylums and Catholic schools and all that sort of thing to keep them away from their parents because they didn't think that the parents would raise them the way that the church and state would want them to be raised. So we had hundreds of years of being told that we weren't good enough other than for human sacrifice until now, until I came along and they did what they did to me. And now I'm showing them what Indigenes can really do, and I can promise you now I am probably one of the reasons why Donald Trump needs to wear a bloody diaper, because they're shitting themselves because they know what's coming. And it doesn't matter. They keep threatening me with all sorts. Every day, all the fake news, all the fake videos, threat. And I just push through the bullshit because I know where I'm headed. And the second I land in Alaska, it means that I've won. And that's like me getting justice is justice for everyone. My victory will be justice for Indigenous people all over the world, because then I can show them exactly what to do to fight the system. Because they don't want you to know just how many rights you actually have. They don't want you to know the laws that are there. So with somebody like me who's trying to put it out there, they shadow ban me, they remove my social media, they threaten me with deportation, with arrest, to have my internet shut down and, blah. It's like, whatever, I'll just get on my soapbox. Like, we had a life before the internet and social media. It's not everything. I don't mind going back to faxes and landlines, whatever. Okay. It just gives me more time to focus on making my movies. And that's the thing. Once I get to Alaska and I'm in my house and I'm writing my stories and making my movies and video games and all that sort of thing, I'm not going to have time for social media and the internet anyway. I'll have it for work purposes and that's it. Because I'll have a life again. Well, I'll have a life. I've never had a life before, because I was too busy bowing down to my husbands, who were determined to belittle me and keep me small. But I'm the cosmic whale. I'm the gold dragon. I'm tapped into the mind of God. I'm bigger than all of that. I'm bigger than all of them. So just watch what's coming, because they're going to rue the day they ever came after me. They picked the wrong Indigenous person to try and torture and kill, because they picked the right Indigenous person to try and torture and kill, because my powers are such now that I'm untouchable. Even in death, I am untouchable. They won't even be able to stop me when I'm dead, because then I'll be martyred. I'll be a martyr for the cause. And my fight is a fight for all Indigenes. And these governments aren't, once Trump and Labour and all that are removed, these governments are not going to be allowed to tell Indigenous people what they can do with their lands and their property and their children, and because it's going to change everything. But if you have addictions, whether it's drugs, alcohol, gambling, if you're violent towards your spouse and your children, that sort of thing, you have to take responsibility for the fact that you're the reason why they think they can take their children, our children, from us in the first place. I knocked that shit right on the head when my kids were young. I worked, I made sure that I paid off my mother's karmic debt and my father's karmic debt, both of whom were raised in families with, abusive households and addictions and that sort of thing, and I knocked that stuff right on the head because I want to be a shining example to my children of what it means to rise from the darkness, to become something better. My own teachers at school said that I'd be a mother of 3 by the time I was 18, and I was determined to prove them wrong, and I had my first kid at 35. So the one thing I wasn't going to let people judge me for was me as a mother, which is exactly why they went after me as a mother, because they knew it was the one thing that I was proud of. I'm so proud of my boys. I can't believe they're mine. And every day I see examples in them of what a good job I did raising them. And even with the sergeant, the staff sergeant at my boys' RAF school, gave me the credit for how well Thomas communicates and how his reading and writing and how he, is able to communicate and how he's a born leader. I got the credit for that. Me. So if I can show everyone out there how to stand up for themselves and not let anyone tell them that being Indigenous is a crime or something to be ashamed of, then my fight is your fight. And I'm telling you now, when I get my money from this, and it's going to be a lot, when I get to Alaska, I will be doing plenty of good things with it, including helping the people of Eklutna, and hopefully in return they can help me with this Annie story, and also helping me work on the Soul Collector, the video game, the comic book, and I mean it's probably going to get turned into a movie, but in the very least it's definitely going to be obviously the video game. But I want to get it right. I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't want my artists and that going out there and taking photos and that, because in my culture it's not allowed. But when we film anything like say my werewolf movie or whatever, anything that involves that sort of thing, they won't be real graves of Indigenous people, I mean. So yeah, but our veterans and all of that, it'll be a different story, because they'll be actor headstones. They're dying. When they die, they're agreeing to let their headstones be filmed. They give permission to do it before they die. But they're probably more than likely not going to be Indigenous. So anyway, so I'm going to go. So yeah, Annie, Highway of Tears, it's all connected. There's similarities, identical. So you need to think broader, expand that case. So yeah, I'm going to go. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite. Mwah.